All right, so it's the middle of January. Ponds are icing over. Everything is freezing up. You need to pay attention to your pond. Make sure your fish are safe all winter long. Let's discuss what's going on. All right, so basically in the winter time, if you have a pond, many people say, what do I have to do to keep my fish happy over the winter? The biggest thing is you need to keep an opening in the ice. Those organic matter, the fish waste and the leaf debris, it's all breaking down. Although much slower in the wintertime, it's still breaking down, releasing gases into the water. Those gases typically just evaporate and don't become an issue. But in the wintertime, when we're iced over like we are now, those gases can build up, and they can build up to toxic levels. Now, that's step one. Step two, if you have big fish or a lot of fish, say multiple 8-inch fish, there's no magic number, but if you have a lot of fish or big fish in a pond, then they need actual aeration on top of maintaining an opening in the ice. So for us, what we like using is what we call a deep water aerator. These things, we put them inside a little Rubbermaid tote. It's basically an aquascape compressor that goes out, puts a little diffuser in there, and that just cranks a ton of air all winter long. Now, you don't put it in the bottom of the pond because you can what we call supercooling your pond. Most people don't realize that in their pond, the warm water settles to the bottom. The oxygen-rich cold water floats to the top. That way, as the ice forms, it actually insulates the warmth down at the bottom. If you put that air stone down at the bottom, you're going to take all that warm water off the bottom, mix it with the top, and your ice can get really deep. Here in New England, very rarely, even in the coldest of winters, will we get more than 11 inches of ice. So on an average pond that's 18 to 24 inches, your fish are more than protected from the ice. It's usually the icing over that causes the problem. Now, some of you like to leave your waterfalls running all winter long, and that's cool, and it does the job for you. Moving water doesn't freeze, and so when it's also oxygenating that water. But what happens is, as you can see how the ice starts forming in the streams, if I was leaving that waterfall running all winter long, that ice starts forming, makes really cool ice sculptures, especially if you leave the lights running all winter. But they have the problem of the ice is taking water out of the water state, and it's frozen. So same thing with the pond. As I start getting 3-4 inches of ice, that was water at one point. If I have a skimmer on my pond and I only have so much water before the skimmer is going to start sucking air, right around now when we've been frozen for 2-3 weeks at a time and you're getting good ice formation in the pond, that's when you need to get the hose out and top your pond off. Don't forget to add detoxifier. It is better to add a little bit of water on a regular basis just to make sure your pond stays running at all times. Now, what to do if things shut off? So for me, if I have an aerator like this, if we stay frozen for 3-4 weeks, that's gonna ice right over. I don't worry about it. As long as I hear the bubbles underneath the ice, I can hear the compressor running, I don't worry about my fish. The air is pumping through that pond and it's gonna escape through the cracks around the edges somewhere. However, if the aerator shuts off for extended periods of time, and now I'm talking a day or two. Most people, if we lose power, they get into a panic that the fish are gonna die within a day. Not at all. My experience is they can actually go a week or so sometimes. There's no magic number. You don't want to go any time without aerating. But in my experience, it's not like you lose power now, your fish are going to suffocate in an hour or two. So take your time. One, never smash an opening in the ice. If you sit there and this is iced over, some people have gone and take sledgehammers and start smashing it. The impact from that to the fish can actually give them a concussion and do more damage to the fish by trying to smash open your ice. Usually what I do is take an old-fashioned pond heater and just melt the hole in the ice. Now, for those who don't use aerators, you can use heaters, since we just mentioned it. Let's take a look at what a heater looks like. Now, Aquascape makes a nice heater, much more energy efficient than some makes and models out there. Old school ones would generate about 1,200 watts of electricity to run. This only does 300. Now, there's a bit of a misconception. A lot of customers think that if they put a heater in the pond, that they're heating the entire pond. No, all we're trying to do is keep that opening in the ice, let those gases out. But if I'm using heater, I add to them a small aerator. So I would do the same thing. We put the aerators inside a small tote, put the diffusers in the pond, somewhat near the heater, and then let it do its job. It's not my preferred way to do it. I don't like having to run two different electronics over the winter. I just use one deep water aerator. But this is actually historically probably the more popular way of doing it. So in the end, as long as that air is running, as long as you see a little bit of ring of opening around your de-icers, as long as your small compressor, you can still hear the bubbles going, the assumption is that you've done everything you can to make sure the fish are as happy and healthy as you can over the winter. Doesn't mean fatalities aren't going to happen, but what we really want is, I prefer ice. I don't like these 55-degree winters. Fish are not happy. They want to be dormant. They want to be asleep down at the bottom of the pond, and as long as the aeration's running, you're fine. If you have the pond running and you're leaving your waterfall running and it freezes, if you have a skimmer, the only thing I worry about breaking inside there, the pumps can many times handle the winter just fine. If you have like an aquascape style system with a skimmer with a pump in there running, just get in there and disconnect your pump. Even if you can't remove the pump out of the skimmer, at least disconnect it so that the fittings don't break. Outside of that, throw a heater on it, throw an aerator on it, forget about it for the winter time. As long as it's running, enjoy your winter. Take care. Hope that helps.